welcome to this week's Wellness Watch. Season 1 of Wellness Watch was originally recorded on our live class platform, Learn It Live, and I'm really glad to be bringing you the Season 1 episodes to YouTube now. I hope you will enjoy these sessions and be sure to like and comment on this video if you have any questions, and find out more information about the Dancing Herbalist at thedancingherbalist.com. I hope you enjoy today's session on food experimentation. So hi everyone that's here live today. Welcome to the first Wellness Watch session. This is going to be kind of like a little bit like a radio channel style. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things over the next few weeks in the different sessions we have. We're going to have all the sessions be free every week with different wellness practitioners, and we're going to be focusing on different wellness topics, nutrition, herbs, movement, just anything you'd like to chat about. We are going to have specific topics for each week, but if you ever have any questions, feel free when you're here live to add them to the chat window to the side, and we'll be happy to switch gears a little bit and chat about some other things. And if you don't know me yet, my name is Jillian Karnrick. I have a Master of Science degree in herbal medicine. I am also a nutritionist. I am a certified personal trainer through the American College of Sports Medicine. And through that program, I am also an exercises medicine professional. So I do a lot of movement therapies, as well as like focuses on nutrition and finding choices in your life that work really well, rather than making everyone should do this kinds of statements. I do run the company, The Dancing Herbalist. And this company focuses on topical herbal products, mostly for joint and muscle pain, but also for skin sensitivities and irritations. I have written the book, A Beginner's Guide to Wellness, which is a great, inexpensive way to get you started on wellness if you want to kind of go at your own pace and learn and experiment on your own time. But if you are looking for some more additional support that's more personalized for you, I do also offer consultation services as well. We'll get back to this in a second. But today I also have Annabelle Shiver here with us. Annabelle, hi, would you like to introduce yourself a bit?
Hi, my name's Annabelle, and Jillian and I like to get together and talk about food and nutrition and wonderful modalities for keeping the body moving and well. So I'm just excited to join, and I think you have my bio there.
Yeah. So Annabelle has gone through a lot of different challenges in her life, and I've gone through some challenges too, but maybe not quite as extreme as Annabelle's. But we found common ground many years ago when we became good friends, and we really just started chatting a lot about food and exploring different food-related things. And the session today is supposed to be talking about food experimentation. So if you are following the Dancing Herbalist and on our newsletter, you'll see that this month I am going to be going vegan for a month, mostly to like experiment with how this feels in my body, what I need to do to cook differently, what nutrients I may or may not be getting enough of, just to like see how my body feels. And Annabelle, you have been vegan for quite a while now.
Correct. Yes, I've been on a plant. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. So yes, I've been on a plant-based diet for about 3 years. On and off, I've done vegetarian, and I went strictly plant-based about 2 years ago.
What was the main reason for this shift for you?
For me, I'd had lifelong health issues, unaware that being autistic, I also had a tremendous amount of food allergies. And so after going through an elimination diet process, I started to make a connection that I was having allergic reactions, especially to animal proteins. And so genetically, I have a protein conversion issue. And so from there, I started with a core group of foods and then did a lot of experimenting to find out what works with my body and what doesn't. So plant-based food tends to keep me feeling well and give me lots of energy and continue me on a healing path.
So when I'm doing food experimentations, I like to kind of like give myself like a rule. If I'm doing like a small experiment, it might just be like I have to have this food once a week, every week for a certain amount of time. Or I can't have these foods, and then I have to try to find alternatives instead. When you go about doing food experiments, where do you usually start?
Well, I do usually start in the same fashion. And sometimes one thing that I really had to cut out of my diet was processed food because of the additives and things of that nature.
Can
So
you
when I
describe what
started,
you mean by processed foods?
foods that have additives such as guar gum, xanthan gum, of course, any type of artificial colors, and a basic table sea salt I tended to have issues with. So I had to do the finding alternatives for the foods that I knew that I needed, and one by one sort of experimenting with them and finding first the correct way to prepare them or to process them and then to prepare them and then make them tasty and yummy.
What do you mean by processing rather than preparing?
Well, there's some foods that have heavy enzyme blockers on them if they're not processed correctly. So,
And what's an
take
enzyme blocker?
an enzyme blocker blocks the ability for the digestive or the enzymes inside the body to utilize the nutrition from nuts, seeds, grains, things of that nature. When you think about it, it's a protective coating around the seed that keeps it, it's the self-defense mechanism of the plant. So I think one thing is I've really done with experimenting is learning to process things such as nuts, seeds, grains, beans, making sure that they're sprouted. So just going to the store and buying a thing of peanut butter or sunflower butter, I tend to not do because I need those things to be correctly processed so that my body can utilize them correctly.
Now, do you think everyone should be doing this, or do you think some people are able to process those foods within their own digestive system rather than before eating them?
I think that some people probably have the disposition to be able to break that down without any type of assistance as far as processing food or digestive enzymes. But I do think that eventually these things wear down because what happens whenever you block an enzyme, it really disrupts the mineral channels inside of the body. So it blocks the body from being able to uptake calcium or uptake magnesium. So I think kind of ultimately you would benefit from making sure that you reduce your exposure to things like phytic acid and things that can disrupt your mineral absorption, which is kind of the core of our cellular health.
Mm. So with my food experimentation I'm doing right now, I actually have some beans cooking right now. So you're mentioning phytic acid, and I was like, oh yeah, I got to process these right before I cook them. I remember growing up, my mother would make baked beans all the time, like New England baked beans. And she didn't soak the beans. And now I feel like, what? Of course, you have to soak beans ahead of time before cooking them.
Right.
And she would maybe put them into a crock pot for, I want to say, maybe about 8 hours. And I mean, they would taste delicious, but now that I really know how to cook beans, I feel like the texture is way more appealing. So how I prepare like the average beans, I will soak them for about 48 hours, and I'll change the water and rinse them off about every 8 hours. And then I like to cook beans in a slow cooker or crock pot for at least 24 hours. I don't always get that, and sometimes they'll get a little bit mushy before then, and I don't want them to have that happen. But I know when I'm washing my beans to make sure that I've soaked them enough, before I strain them, I look to see if there are bubbles on the top of the water.
Right.
And I laugh when I finally realized what this was, because a lot of people say, like, oh yeah, I can't eat beans because they give me gas. Well, those bubbles that are coming out of the beans in the soaking process, that's that gas right there. That's like exactly it.
Exactly. So I think, it's really good, a long-term health decision to do that for preventative care and vitality, but also, to cut down on some unpleasant and perhaps embarrassing flatulence.
I mean, you don't cook or eat beans right now, do you?
I do not eat beans right now. My big food experimentation right now is eating raw food, so I've cut beans out for the time being.
When you were cooking beans or preparing beans, were you doing anything that you were doing differently from what I described?
Not particularly. I don't think. Well, I don't use a slow cooker. I just cook on low for an extremely long period of time. And it does help that I sort of, soak a couple of days beforehand. Usually what I do is I get up early and, I get them to a nice start, and then I just let them cook on low for the rest of the day. I still actually cook beans right now because my family loves beans. So, but I just don't use a slow cooker.
Now, do you cook vegan or plant-based for the rest of your family?
I do. I cook a little bit of meats and eggs and things of that nature occasionally, but usually the bulk of the meals I make are plant-based, and then my family can add to them what they would like to add.
And they can cook their own things.
Correct.
Now, when I'm cooking beans, like the recipes that I had growing up, all had like ham in them and like very fatty meats. And I realized once I stopped putting those in there, I had to put fat in with my beans when I was cooking them. Is that anything you do or have done?
Well, it's interesting because I too grew up the same way. Interestingly, I'm from the opposite side, or the south side, where I grew up very southern, and we loved ham and beans and fats and fried chickens and all that kind of jazz. But I, on this journey I've been on, really primarily what I focus on is lymphatic drainage, which requires me to have a very astringent diet. And so I've also cut out oils from my diet for the time being while I'm trying to get myself into a complete state of wellness. So I don't tend to add fat to the beans, but usually whenever they're done, when I make them up as a meal, I will make them with vegetarian vegan cheese and with avocado and things of that nature on the back end of it. So there's still fat combined, but I don't necessarily cook with fat.
Yeah, I found that the beans seem to me to cook better when I have the fat in there. The beans themselves actually break down a little bit more.
I would think that's true. I would think that's true.
Yeah. So with going vegan, are there any big suggestions or tips that you think I should be focused on?
Sure. I mean, I've learned a lot in this process, and one of them is to not go hungry. A lot of people, whenever they do experiment this way, they don't realize that you have to eat more on a vegetarian diet
Definitely.
or a vegan diet. So, for instance, I had a friend who, I eat a lot of fruit. So I had a friend who was, kind of doing the same as an experiment, and she was just so upset. She said, "I'm so hungry." And I asked her what she ate, and she said, "I had, a quarter cup of blueberries and a banana." And I'm like, "No, you need to eat as much as you want until you're full."
So, Annabelle, how many bananas have you had so far today?
What is that?
How, how many bananas have you had so far today?
Let's see. I've had probably 7. Yeah, I think I've had 7. I've had 2 banana bowls with mono meal, and then I had a banana bowl with raspberries.
That sounds delicious.
It really was, and spirulina.
Yeah.
And I would say the other the other vegan thing is to focus, to put some focus on, is that it's really important to make sure that things like sea veggies are included, because it's that, it can be a challenge to get all of your nutritional needs met if you don't have some balance, and if you don't, kind of put all of these things together in the sense like making sure you're getting a comprehensive blend of vegetables and fruit.
Yeah. When I was trying to think of what I was going to cook today, and I was creating a list of stuff that I needed to buy at the grocery store, my brain was just not thinking of all the vegetables that I was going to be able to see there. Like, I was like,
Right.
I don't know what other vegetables I can put in this because I can't think of what else is at the grocery store. And then I got there, and then I was like, oh, I could put this and this and this in there too. That sounds great. So I'm going to put purple cabbage in with my black beans. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be a really nice dark colored dish, full
Yeah,
of
that does sound
phytonutrients.
delicious.
And but yeah, you were talking about how like making sure you have to actually eat more. Anytime that I'm doing a food experimentation, one of the things that I always try to get and figure out ahead of time before I start is something that I really like that I can still snack on.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
like in an emergency, like I still have this.
Yeah, you really
And
do have to set yourself up to succeed,
yep.
I would say, another thing, I think whenever you do something and you do an experiment like this, which is a big transition, the digestive system can tend to get a little out of whack. And sometimes people, when they go to fruits or when they go to greens, tend to, have a lot of rumbling in their belly, things of that nature. I would say that it's also very important to follow good digestive food combination rules, like not mixing starches and proteins together. You want to take it easy on the digestive system and let it kind of get used to what you're doing. So
Now,
you can have
food
a variety of
combination is
foods.
nothing I've ever done. Do
Well,
you
that was
have the only food combination one that I ever hear frequently is not having fruit at the end of a meal. But or like by itself. But clearly, that is not an issue for everyone. My understanding of that concern about not having fruit at the end of a meal is that the concept of the fruit sitting on top of everything else in your stomach may allow it to ferment within the stomach before it's processed by all the acids and moving into the intestines.
right.
And that may cause some like stomach upset.
Right. I mean,
But
you've touched completely on the head of it.
yeah, I have never experienced that as an issue. Is that something you've experienced?
Very much. I've had Crohn's disease markers and irritable bowel syndrome. I had that for decades. Gastroparesis. So definitely had a very extensive amount of digestive issues. So learning about food combinations came from a lot of experimentation, but there's actually quite a few that you could pay mind to.
What are some of the other ones that are big
Proteins and
ones?
starches, combining proteins and starches can cause fermentation. When you talk about fruit at the end of the meal, that's really great because fruit typically should be consumed on its own or combined with fruity vegetables in the sense of greens or peppers or cucumbers, things of that nature.
Basically, the
Some
vegetables
people
that
will,
have seeds.
right. Some people will
Yeah.
put strawberries on their salad or something like that. That tends to be
Mm.
okay because they break down around the same amount of time. And it's really about how long it takes these different things to break down in the system. Also, combining cooked food and raw food tends to be pretty difficult for the digestive system because they both break down and process on different amount of times. It takes 2 to 3 hours for a cooked meal to break down as opposed to an hour to maybe 2 hours of raw food. So what are some other ones that I've really
Can we talk a little bit more about the cooked and raw breakdown time? Because I'm really interested in this. So let's say I'm eating a meal that for the sake has nicely cooked beans and then a salad. So we have cooked beans and a raw salad. And I'm eating both at the same time so that they're in my stomach at the same time.
right.
So the acids there are going to be the hydrochloric acid and other digestive enzymes are going to be breaking the food down at different rates. Is this what you're suggesting is where this happens?
Yes. Yeah, the food breaks down at different rates for fruits, for vegetables, for fat, for raw foods, and for cooked foods. There's kind of 5 categories there.
Yeah.
But you can sort of help yourself out if you do something like eat a salad along with beans. You definitely don't want to put blueberries on that salad because, of course, you have more sugar or fructose, glucose content in that. So that's where you're going to start creating fermentation while your beans are sitting in there taking long to digest. Right.
But regardless of how fast the food is digesting in the stomach, gastric emptying, so the food leaving the stomach and going into the small intestine, that happens at a constant rate.
It does usually,
So basically, what I'm hearing, or at least what I'm deducing, I should say, is that the food that's entering the small intestine may not all be equally digested. As such, it may be harder for the body to absorb the nutrients from that because it's not all equal, not harder to absorb, sorry. There's less that's available to absorb because not all of it's broken down all the way.
Right, absolutely. And that's, ultimately a very big concern. You definitely want to have 4 main focuses whenever it comes to eating food, and that's digestion, absorption, utilization, and elimination. So you want to get
Can you do
the
that
most
again?
from your
Because
food.
that's like one of the most important things I hear you say all the time. Can you just say it again, what the 4 things are?
Digestion, absorption, utilization, elimination.
Okay.
So especially if you have any type of, compromised health, I've suffered from or, dealt with metabolic disorders and cellular dehydration. It's really important to be able to get all of those valuable and necessary nutrients to our cells to keep, food as fuel. So it can be fun fuel, and that's what I love too about experimenting. So tonight I'm actually going to eat some cooked food again. So
when was the last time you had cooked food?
actually, I just had it on Tuesday. but I'm slowing down just a little bit here this week. So I'm going to enjoy one more meal tonight.
What are you having
That's
tonight?
the other thing too, I think, is to listen to your body. Your body knows
Huge
what
thing.
it needs. It knows what it wants.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I'm hoping to get out of eating vegan for a month, is to listen to my body and see what my body has to say about eating differently that way. Um, I mean, am I going to have more energy? Am I going to be more tired? Am I going to find new food combinations that work really well for me? Am I going to find new ways to cook? Who knows? Maybe I will. I was trying to think of something really ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe my nails will grow better. Who knows? So that's why I want
Well,
to
can I
basically see
ask
how
you
my
a
body reacts
question?
to all of it. Yeah.
I'm wondering, because one thing I've noticed as I've been experimenting more lately is I reduced my fat intake,
Mm-hmm.
and I started eating any, fat, primary fat meals and um, cooked foods at night. Because what I've noticed is, well, of course, I start the day out with fruit because I eat a lot of fruit. So, and I usually have really good energy. But what I've been noticing is that when I eat fats or when I eat cooked meals, I slow down. So maybe there's something to the whole, I think there's some type of diets out there I've heard about that's like raw before 4 or something of that nature.
So I think, at least in your case, I don't know that I would say this for everyone, but just because I know some of the things about your digestion, when it comes to the fats, my assumption is that your body is putting in a lot more energy to try to digest them.
Mm, right.
Because the fats are definitely one. I mean, we absorb fats. Okay, so fats are don't break down so much. Fat's just like an individual droplet of fat. Let's just think of olive oil, because the liquid fat's easier to kind of contextualize this in. What our body does to break it down is it breaks it into smaller and smaller droplets of fat. The actual individual molecules don't really get broken down until they're absorbed into the body.
Mm,
So it takes a lot of it's bile that is what actually breaks those fat droplets down into smaller and smaller droplets. So you have to have good liver and gallbladder function to be able to produce that bile to actually break the fats down already.
mm,
And then once your
right.
body then absorbs those fats, they're then processed immediately by the liver. So again, your liver really needs to have a lot of oomph to it. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're struggling with fats and you're feeling really like weighed down and tired and not having enough energy after eating them, it's probably a lot going on with the liver and gallbladder, just because it takes so much energy to break those down if your liver and gallbladder are taxed to any level. Um, and this can be from any number of things too. I mean, Annabelle, better than me, why your liver and gallbladder are not the best in the world. But I mean, we live in a society that is just rampant with toxins that just affect our liver and gallbladder, and they just have to process them and get them out of our body. And our livers do the best they can, but it takes a lot of energy to do that. Um,
Right.
so it's not just someone, like, I know for myself growing up, my instinct was, if someone has a problem with their liver, that means they're drinking alcohol. It's not that. I mean,
Right.
like, there's so much more to it than that. I mean, it could be anything from just like having a soda kind of thing, anything that has colorings or the additives, the preservatives, anything that's like not something our body really knows how to handle it, views it as toxic or other, and has to try to get it out of the body. Um, so
Right. Yeah, that makes absolute sense because that's just sort of one way I tailor my days because, of course, I would like to have energy through the day. So the fast, is one thing, but I think some people also struggle digesting fruits on that level. It can make them a little tired and lethargic and things of that nature. And then, you have to look at the pancreas. But it's just so interesting, going back to what we were saying, is how you can really tell what's going on with your body. You can see where your weaknesses are. You can see what areas you need to strengthen if you just pay close attention and you give your body some good, clean fruits, veggies, and water and let it do its thing.
So it's interesting you mentioned the fruits doing a similar thing, because I had been working with a woman once who had I think she was labeling it as IBS, as irritable bowel syndrome. I don't know that I was going to label it as that, but I think that's what she was labeling it as. And one of her big issues was she couldn't eat any fruits at all. And what her concept of why she couldn't was because of the seeds. And now I don't quite know exactly if it was due to the seeds, but seeds in general are something that our body doesn't really break down very well, as you were talking about before, about making sure you're processing them ahead of time. If you're having like nuts and seeds that we would normally eat, but like even strawberries have seeds on them, and those it's really roughage. It's like the equivalent of eating like little grains of sand in our digestive system, because they just grind against each other and never really break down. And I think for her, she was getting a lot of irritation in her digestive lining with those seeds, and I think those were causing inflammation. And so that inflammation, that's a trigger for the immune system. So our immune system, again, is another thing that takes a lot of energy, because it's a full system through our whole body. And that if we get an inflammatory reaction, an acute one especially, we're going to notice a bit of a tired feeling, because it takes a lot of energy to, oh no, there's something wrong, we have to fix it.
Right.
So I think that's definitely one of the things for some individuals that goes on with the fruit.
Which I think is really interesting, because those fruits that have the types of seeds, like berries and things of that nature, are very astringent. But what those seeds do is keep the walls of the bowel clean. That's what greens do.
Yep.
Greens go in and clean out our bowel walls. So we really need that, because if we have a buildup there, that's where we start getting into the avenue of not being able to absorb nutrition, and then you're stuck on step 2, and then from there, things just kind of slowly or rapidly go downhill, whatever it is. But I can see that causing inflammation to someone who's got a very sensitive system, because any type of aggravation like that is going to create an inflammation response inside of the body. That's why I love bananas so much, because they're like an antacid. So a lot of people that can't tolerate fruits, I always ask them, I'm like, have you tried bananas?
Yeah, I remember when I first started looking at like more natural foods or alternative medicine and things like that. This was before like I really knew what organic was, and I wasn't really eating organic. I did not like bananas at all. You could not stand bananas. And the one way you could get me to eat a banana was if it was like so not ripe. It was like still green. And I was like, it's just because I couldn't deal with the texture. And then through some school assignment, probably, I decided to try organic bananas. And the taste and the texture was a world of difference to me. And like I never was expecting to like notice that much of a difference. I mean, we talk about like how a lot of organic foods have like a higher nutrient content, and they might look look prettier. We don't have to, I mean, you should still wash them for dirt, but like you don't have to worry about the same pesticides on them. But I was not expecting to notice such a significant difference in taste and texture with the organic food. And I would not have found this out if I wasn't just trying different things. That's why I think always trying something new is important, even if it's just a little thing about like trying a different brand of peanut butter for 1 week or something like that. Um, just trying some different things to see what works better for you. You might find new foods you can eat. You might find different different ways of preparing foods that work better for you. And there's so many different things. There's just so much experimenting is just so important, I think, with food in particular.
It really is. And you can take one simple whole food and make so many different things with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can combine it in so many different ways. And I think one important thing when we talk about, you know, listening to our bodies too, is what I've done before, and what I see a lot of people do is that, you know, they eat something and their tummy gets really gurgly or whatever, and they think, oh, that food doesn't agree with me. Can't eat that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to, even listening to your body, really have to discern something like apples are a really great example. A lot of people will have a lot of rumbling and such, you know, when they eat apples. But
yeah,
apple pectin is a gut modulator. So it's going to kill off, you know, bacteria that doesn't belong there, and it's gonna boost up the bacteria that needs to be in the gut. So it has a job inside of the gut. So sometimes when you're feeling something inside of the body, it doesn't mean that it can't be tolerated. You know, it means that it's working, it's doing its job. So
yeah, it's knowing what the feelings mean is the hard part.
it really is. It really is, because, you know, everything just sort of, it's a symptom is a symptom, and so you just automatically categorize that. But I've had to, you know, that's something I've learned in this experimenting is taking note of the different types of things that happen with my body whenever I eat certain foods. So, and you have in your wellness book, you have something in there, I think a workbook about keeping a food journal, things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. I did that for a few years, and it really benefited me well. I think when people are doing something really different, you know, and out of the norm, that, you know, that might be a good suggestion to kind of just be able to keep up with what's going on and try to start learning what's actually happening instead of ruling out foods. I see a lot of people rule out foods like fruits and things of that nature because of some sensations they may have, but also because, you know, there's a lot of information about things out there like candida and things of that nature. So I think the big thing that I try to always stay focused on is that nutrition is what heals, not elimination and not deprivation. Not, you know, I would say always try to experiment and get more food, and, you know, get more foods, get more variety, and stay seasonal and organic as best you can.
No, definitely. And you're talking about the food journaling, and I think I'm going to schedule one of our sessions for February as a focus on food journaling. I think that'll be a great option. We could definitely spend an hour talking about food journaling.
Yeah.
But it's an important thing. Just because I want to mention this about food journaling now is that, yeah, it's easy to just go start experimenting, but if you are going to be journaling and doing a food journal to really know what changes you're going to make, you need to food journal before you start experimenting, because you need to know what your starting point is.
Right.
And it's very easy to just say like, oh, I haven't been feeling good, but like knowing specifically, like journaling and writing about like when you're eating, what you're eating, how you feel a half an hour to an hour before, half an hour to an hour after. All of these different things are important, and it's every little symptom too. It's am I tired? Do I have a pain in my back? Do my feet hurt? Are my feet swollen? Like all of these different things, they play into what you're eating. So you have to, when you're starting to journal, especially right before, you have to really pay attention to every single symptom in your whole body. It could be even an hour before you're eating. Oh, I'm really craving this food, but I'm going to eat this food. And then an hour later, I'm still craving that other food, but now I'm feeling
Right.
stressed about it. Like that's important because
Right.
that shows what your body is looking for. You just have to then find alternatives through experimentation to see what actually solves those individual issues.
Right, absolutely. And I think, finding joy and gratitude in food, I like to try and make it a very mindful experiment. So becoming a more mindful eater, I think for me has actually made me more experimental.
I think
So,
so
and it's
too.
also taught me to trust myself.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
like tonight I'm going to be putting some sea veggies in, and I haven't done that in a while. But, I just know that the time is now. It's, so
What
I
are
would
you
definitely
using for
say,
sea vegetables?
ooh, kelp frond, usually kelp. It's my favorite, and it's also affordable and easy to get. So, but again, it's also about food quality, making sure that,
Hmm.
foods that we do eat are not, don't contain pesticides and things of that nature, especially systemic pesticides. So that also goes back into the food processing, is really paying attention to what you're buying. Because if you buy something that has a systemic pesticide, you cannot wash that off with a baking soda vinegar bath.
Yep. Yeah. Now I know what you mean by systemic pesticide. Can you describe that a little bit more clearly?
A systemic pesticide penetrates every cell of the plant versus a more topical pesticide will cover a plant. So something that has a systemic pesticide such as Roundup or something of that nature actually gets into the cell walls of the plant, so you cannot rinse off the chemical.
So my understanding of that is that there's kind of two different ways that that comes about. Like you're mentioning with Roundup, whether it's sprayed onto the plant or onto the roots, the plant will then absorb it either through the leaves or the root, and then through its natural life cycle, the of growing and dividing, the chemicals maintain themselves in the plant. They don't leave the plant. But
Right.
also some genetically modified plants, um, ones that have been made in the lab, not ones that have been modified through selective breeding. Some that are modified in the lab, they will have genes added into the plants that will self-produce pesticides.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
this is the round was it the Roundup Ready plants. Now, I believe there's corn that's Roundup Ready. There's probably wheat as well. There's probably a whole bunch of them that we don't even know about. Um, but
Soy,
they
papaya,
say again? Soy, yes, definitely soy.
soy, papaya, right, right,
So what this basically means is that these plants have new genes added to them that wouldn't normally be there. And as a result, the genes will be activated or transcribed by the cell and produce the actual pesticides within the cells. I mean, like, hey, look, they don't have to do it in the manufacturing facility. We don't have to spray them on the plants. Let's just make the plants do it themselves. So the
Right.
plant is then producing it. And again, there's no way to get rid of that. Um, and there are
And then just
very
think
poor
about
studies
cooking
on
it.
what those do to the body. Yes. Yeah, cooking it's not going to make any difference either.
Yeah, right. In fact, I mean, I don't know what happens. I don't know chemistry to this level, but I don't know what happens when you take some of those chemicals and you cook them. I'm not sure. I don't really want to find out. I like to pick some experiments to do and some to not do. That's kind of wonderful.
Yeah, and I don't think there's good research out there about what happens with those plants are cooked. I mean, there's
Right.
not good research about those plants anyway, which is unfortunate because if there was really no issue with them, we would see the good research and we would all love and adore them, but the research just really isn't out there. Um, which I mean, some of these things, yeah, I would love to solve world hunger with Roundup Ready plants if it wasn't harmful, if the pesticides went away, like if all of these things were great, it would be great, but we don't know that that's
Absolutely.
happening or not.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the plants. And then, we talk about sea veggies and, you have to think about heavy metals and things of that nature. So,
Hmm.
really, I think, just picking a spot to start and being experimental and being mindful and conscientious. And I always say question everything in, on, and around the body. So if there's something new that's coming around, I want to know what that is. I want
Mm,
to know how to deal with it, how to handle it, manage it, cook it, process it, what have you. So I think that food experimentation ultimately comes down to curiosity, and that can be a very fun and
yes,
joyful experience.
definitely.
Because a lot of
Um,
people focusing on pesticides and such, I mean, it's not fun to focus on.
a friend of mine who, unfortunately, it's surprising that I have friends that are still on the standard American diet, but I do have some, and one of them was very excited a few weeks ago, and I told you this a little bit, Annabelle. She came up to me and she had a cucumber, and she's like, "I'm so excited! I'm going to try to cook this zucchini thing, this zucchini dish that someone told me about." And I'm like, "More power to you! You should have a zucchini, not a cucumber, to do that with."
Right.
So
Yeah, there's
yeah, she was
really
really
so much
excited
to
to try
learn.
something new. I know this is how we learn new things.
And I
Um,
just love that, like, we've been doing food experimentation together for a couple of years.
mhm.
And Jillian, you're one of the few people on the face of the planet I will eat food if you cook for me. Um,
Same,
but it's
same.
always so interesting and fun because even as much as we've done together and talked about, it's like the surface of the ocean. I mean, there's so much more out there that we can do, and you can just come up with so many amazing ideas if you approach this with an attitude of curiosity and joy.
Definitely. I think when I see someone that's on the standard American diet, some of the first things that I suggest when it comes to food experimentation, other than just starting to journal and know exactly where you are with your food, is trying new fruits and vegetables. Um,
Right.
and I always tell people if you pick something up that you don't know what it is, take a picture of the sign when you're buying it. So you
Yes,
can
yes.
actually go look it up. Um, Especially for like if you're buying more exotic fruits that people don't know. Um, and like I had someone walk past me at a grocery store a week or so ago, and she's like, "They gave me this. They told me to cook it. I don't know what it is." And I'm like, "That's a dragon fruit. You eat it raw." So yeah, yeah. Make sure you take a picture of the stuff that you're getting. But try new fruits and vegetables. Some you cook, some you don't cook. I mean, we have smartphones now too, so we can even like look up recipes while we're in the grocery store. So I think that's a great thing to do is to start by trying new fruits and vegetables. Are there any other like really simple things for food experimentation that you suggest for people to start with, Annabelle?
I would just suggest, that even though we're experimenting and trying all this new stuff, that it's also kept simple. Because I think whenever people try to experiment and do something new, I know that I do this. I'm like, oh, it's my first week raw. I'm gonna make zucchini Alfredo, nachero, whatever, and ceviche and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I need to just be reasonable and be simple, and give myself time to learn and not get frustrated in the process, and then give up.
Yeah, it's very easy to get frustrated. So keeping it simple is really, really important. I mean, like if I'm trying a new vegetable, for instance, and I see it, yeah, people eat it raw. Well, I'm gonna try it raw first. Don't put in the effort to cook it first.
Right.
And because I may screw it up the first time I cook it, and I want to know what it tastes like anyway. But yeah, I really like to, when I'm trying new food combinations, and I was suggesting you try this out, Annabelle, is when I don't know what I've put into something and I'm just throwing things into a pot, because Annabelle, you and I like to really just throw things into a pot and see what we come up with.
Right.
I like to, let's say before I press the blender, if I'm blending something, or before I like start to stir stuff together, or before I cut anything, I'll take a picture of everything I'm planning to put in there. And whether it may or may not end up in the pot, it gives my brain like, oh yeah, this was what I was thinking about when I was
Right.
going to cook something.
Well,
Because
one thing I've not learned, that I'm in the process of learning, is when you're experimenting, sometimes you come up with some amazing, as you know, some amazing dishes. And for me, I don't take note of them because I've just thrown all this stuff into a pot, and then I cannot ever have that meal again.
yeah, that's what I was
So
talking about, taking a picture of everything.
that's a great idea. Just getting all your ingredients together and then taking a picture, because that's one thing I struggle with is, I make something just so amazing, and then I'm like, well, it's a one and done because I just don't know what I did.
That's all right. So we're going to be wrapping up in just a few minutes. And before I take any last questions, if anybody's has some questions on the stuff we've chatted about today, I do just want to make sure everyone knows, if you do want to find out about more of the classes that the Dancing Herbalist offers, you can join our newsletter at thedancingherbalist.com. That is also where you can purchase products for joint and muscle pain and skin health. Our book as well is available on there about A Beginner's Guide to Wellness. And then we do still have a few tinctures left from A Balanced Life Wellness. We are going to be discontinuing selling those. Betsy, who manufactures those, had a baby, so she's taking a little bit of a break from that. But you can find our other classes through Learn It Live. There are other free and paid classes on there. And if after the session, you can always come back to another session and ask your questions there. But if you have a quick question, we do have a Facebook group as well that you can come there and ask your question there. Usually one of us responds within about 4 to 6 hours. But if you are enjoying this program, the Wellness Walk, this is one of the things that our patrons support through the Dancing Herbalist Patreon page. You get access to additional blogs, posters, products, and things like that for only $1 a month. And if you are interested in some of our more in-depth classes, the Conscience Students level even gets you 50% off of classes when those are going on. But there is a special bonus through Patreon that I want to let you know about right now, because I am doing some food experimentation this month and going vegan. I'm going to be posting all of my recipes that I come up with as well as some reviews on like products, pre-made, pre-packaged things that are also vegan. And all of those reviews are going to just be posted on the Dancing Herbalist Patreon page. They're not going to be posted in our regular blog. Now you can find our regular blog. It's listed somewhere on here. The regular blog is wordpress.com/the Dancing Herbalist. Is that correct? No, it's thedancingherbalist.wordpress.com. There we go. You can also find it through thedancingherbalist.com and just follow the links there. But we post blogs once a week, and our Patreon is going to have our extra blogs through the month of February. So you can find those there, and you can either join now to get them when they first come out, or you can join later to get them later as well. Now we have a few minutes left. Does anyone have any extra other questions they'd like to ask? Annabelle, what are you having for dinner tonight?
Tonight I am going to have some mushrooms and corn, almost like a mushroom and corn salsa, but Asian style with coconut aminos. And I'm making some quinoa, sprouted quinoa, and making like a little Asian vegetable stir fry. Yes. For the family, I'm making, there's millet and brown rice noodles that are like ramen noodles. So I'm going to make that for them, and then the veggies on top.
Nice. So I said I have
you're having beans and cabbage.
Yeah, so I have the beans are cooking right now. I want to let them cook longer before I add all of the other things in, but I'm planning on adding sweet peppers, carrots, parsnip, cabbage, corn, and then letting that all cook down. Onion too, red onion. Letting that cook down and then straining it, and then I'm going to make a separate sauce of cashews with lemon juice, tomatoes, avocado, garlic, salt, and I might put some of the cabbage in with the sauce too. This is kind of a little bit of a bigger dish. The full recipe is going to be posted on the Patreon, but it's a bigger dish because I'm going to a potluck tomorrow. So I'm going to be bringing what I don't eat tonight, which will be like 90% of it, or 95% of it, to the potluck. So,
sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Packed with proteins and vegetables, get some good fats, get some, no fruit though. That's all right.
Yeah.
But I look forward to chatting with you for Wellness Watch next week as well, Annabelle.
All right, me too. You guys take care. Thanks.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Bye-bye now.